This is a continuation of solutions to the Trig Test 2 review. Alright, so we're going to graph 6f, y equals 1 plus the cosecant of x. Again, we're going to have some asymptotes because the cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. And just remember that the cosine and sine have no asymptotes, everything else has some asymptotes. And just as a review, the sine function and the cosine function kind of look like this. You know, there's these waves. The tangent, so that's the sine and the cosine, it's just that where it goes through the x and y axis might be different. The tangent basically looks like this. The tangent and the cotangent, of course it could be, you know, the other way, but there's some asymptotes basically. And the secant and the cosecant function, they have asymptotes too, but it basically looks something like this. Okay? So it might be good to basically have an idea if you've graphed the cosecant, just the cosecant function. So now let's work on this. So we know what it's going to look like, but then we're going to actually do the problem. So here we go. All right, so let's do the values. If we know theta, how do we get the cosecant of theta? Well, I like to look at the unit circle. So if I'm looking at 0 here, now the radius is 1, right, because it's a unit circle, and the cosecant is the radius over the y value. So we're going to have 1 over 0, it's going to be undefined right here at 0. At pi over 2, it's going to be 1 over 1. At pi, it's going to be again 1 over 0, so it's going to be undefined. At 3 pi over 2, it's going to be 1 over negative 1, so that's going to be negative 1. And at 2 pi, it's going to be undefined as well, because you're going to be dividing by 0. Now that actually gives us a lot of information here, so let's do just first the graph of y equals the cosecant of theta. So we've got the 4 critical points here. So 2 pi, right? Negative 2 pi, and there's pi. All right, so at 0, it's undefined. So we know like the y-axis is an asymptote, and at pi, it's undefined. And at 2 pi, it's undefined again. So you get the idea where it's undefined. Okay. Now, at pi over 1, it's 1. I'm sorry, at pi over 2, it's 1. So right here, it's 1. Here's the 2 asymptotes, and so that's your clue. That's where it goes up. Okay? At 3 pi over 2, it's negative 1. So I go over here, it's negative 1. It goes down. And then it just repeats from there on. So this is the graph of these 2 periods of y equals cosecant of x. But notice I said 1 plus that. Now I could have written that as cosecant of x plus 1 as well. I just didn't want anybody to think that I was doing x plus 1 in parentheses. So I put 1 plus cosecant of x. So what does this mean? The whole thing gets shifted up 1 unit. So the vertical shift is 1 unit up. So that means every point here just gets moved up 1 space, basically. And then we'll redraw our graph. So let's do that. So here's 2 pi, negative 2 pi, same asymptotes. Same period. The period is 2 pi. I didn't write that down. The period for the cosecant. The secant is the same as the sine and the cosine because it's just reciprocal. And then we have no phase shift. The amplitude's still 1. Actually, hardly talk about the amplitude here. And we've got a vertical shift up 1 unit. Okay, so if I look at this graph, instead of it being 1, 1, I'm sorry, pi over 2, 1, it's going to be pi over 2, 2. So when I go over there, I have to go up 2 units. That's the only difference. So I'm going up. And then this gets shifted up. So instead of being at negative pi over 2 and down 1, when I go negative pi over 2, I'm right here at 0. So I have that like that. So it's sort of like, everything just gets shifted up. It's almost like you don't see it, but it's sort of like that's where the x-axis would be. All right, and we just continue doing a couple more, and we've got it. Okay. The other way to do this is you could actually pick up your x-axis and move it. In other words, erase where your x-axis was before. So there's different ways. In other words, you're sort of shifting the x-axis down if you want to think about it that way, because this would have to be on the x-axis. So if you erased this blue line, you could have moved it down. That would be another way to do it. That's up to you. I think most people probably like to just redraw the graph. All right, so that's the last one on the review that I asked you to graph, although you should be able to graph number 7, which is going to be on the next video.